If I had a nickel for every time a glitch show ended and I made a video on it because I wasn't happy with the ending, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. The Amazing Digital Circus has finally come to an end, and there have been a lot of mixed reactions. So what happened? Was the finale so bad that it dragged all the other episodes down with it? Or did it just highlight the many problems the show already had? Unsurprisingly, it's the latter option. I say unsurprisingly because as more episodes from the second half of the show were coming out, I, as well as many other people, started noticing a problem. A bunny-shaped elephant in the closet, if you will, among several other things. So I was already kind of expecting the finale to be disappointing in some way, but I was still hoping for it to be good or at the very least enjoyable. Either way, I was planning on making a video on TADC after it ended, but what I didn't plan for was the rabbit hole I'd fall into. This video is mostly going to be delving into the character writing of the show and the several problems I have with it, as well as some concerning issues I found out about Glitch while making this. So get your Jax toys and buckle up, cause oh boy. For a show that's meant to be character-focused and has multiple instances of everyone coming together despite everything working against them and the horrible situation they're in, the character relationships are very barren. I'm going to quickly go through every character and summarize their relationship with the rest of the cast to show what I mean here. Let's take Gangle. Gangle and Zooble, romantic partners by the end of the show and they're very close. Gangle and Kinger, never interact. Gangle and Jax, abusive with seemingly one-sided jealousy, but this isn't explored too much. Gangle and Ragatha, they like each other but aren't close. The two seem to have mixed feelings towards each other, but this is never expanded upon. Gangle and Pomni, they had one nice interaction in episode 4, so I guess they like each other. Zooble and Kinger, never interact. Zooble and Jax, complete foils to each other. Zooble and Pomni, barely interact, and if they do, it's to talk about Kane. Zooble and Ragatha, never interact. Kinger and Jax, never interact. Kinger and Ragatha have been together the longest and seem to have a father-daughter-esque relationship. Kinger and Pomni, close, both look out for each other in their own ways. Jax and Ragatha, it's complicated but they're close in a lot of ways. These two have a very interesting dynamic and history together, but I personally feel like it could have been delved into a lot more. Pomni and Jax, again, it's complicated but they're close. Pomni and Ragatha, I shit you not, they're an enigma to me. 90% of the time, Ragatha is going above and beyond to form a friendship with Pomni, for Pomni to almost never reciprocate this. The show sets up tension between the two at times, and then they're suddenly fine and have a conversation off screen about, I don't know.
Let's talk after the show. Yeah, sounds good.
So, when Ragatha says, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me," and Pomni goes, "You're my best friend" in the last episode and hugs Ragatha's ass for a full minute, I feel nothing.
I have been looking everywhere for you. Oh my gosh, I don't know you, but okay!
It's a weird on and off thing, and I'm genuinely confused. I understand by the end of it all they're friends, but it's not really convincing with how the two are written. If you put all of these character pairings under 2 categories, little to no relationship and well-established relationship, you get an 8-to-7 ratio. This isn't a good ratio. Now, I'm not saying I want all the members to make friendship bracelets and paint their nails together, but I really want to hammer in how disconnected the cast feel with each other. And it's not like you can't do anything with these characters. In fact, there's a lot you can do with them. For example, Zooble is the most down-to-earth, no bullshit person in the cast. I can see them not liking Ragatha because she tries too hard to be likable and appeal to others. This could put friction between the two and has potential for both conflict and deeper connections. Zooble could teach Ragatha to be more honest with people, and Ragatha could teach Zooble to be a little more gentler. Because if you don't remember, Zooble was actually kind of rude and hot-headed at the beginning of the series, and just got softer and nicer over time by themselves. Then you have Pomni, someone who indulged in her hobby of exploring abandoned buildings and posting them on YouTube. She could have been a source of inspiration for Gangle, someone who's insecure about her drawings. Or Gangle could ask Pomni how she has the courage to stand up to Jax and not take her bullshit. Another idea, with how close Pomni gets with Jax in the latter half of the season, it's great setup for conflict and tension between Gangle, Zooble, Ragatha, and Pomni. This, of course, doesn't happen because everyone here is emotionally mature, and it dulls out the potential for any kind of interesting beef. A perfect example of this is how episode 7 ends with Jax pressing the button that would supposedly keep everyone in the circus. While this was fake, it was great setup for the cast to jump her ass in the next episode. This almost happens, but no. The situation quickly dissolves thanks to Gangle and Pomni going, "We've all done bad things." I'm sorry, who the hell is we? We speak in French now? Jax pressing the button led to no interesting conflict or character development in any way. Episode 7 could be completely removed from the show, and absolutely nothing would fucking change. But episode 7 sets up Kane's breakdown, I've heard people say. You know what else did that? Literally every other episode, especially episodes 5 and 6. Episode 7 is predictable at best and a waste of time at worst. I'm so curious as to what the script for it was before the rewrite. And also, for a show inspired by I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a book where each of the characters are, as far as I can remember because it's been a few years, awful people in their own ways, it's amazing how grounded everyone apparently is in this show. Now you'll notice that a certain character I'm barely mentioning here is Jax, and well, that's because she's the only one that has the most well-established relationships with the rest of the cast. You could spend a good amount of time dissecting her dynamic with literally any other character minus Kinger. With Kinger, it's a bit weird, because I noticed on my rewatch that Kinger seems to ignore Jax whenever he's sane. In episode 8, when Kinger was talking about CNA, Jax at multiple points goes, "Wait, what? What's going on?" And Kinger doesn't respond to this at all. Episode 9 starts with Jax getting pissed off at Kinger, only for Kinger to ignore Jax again and talk about the brain scans. Both of these interactions feel off for sane Kinger, someone who said the worst thing you could do is make someone feel unwanted and unloved, and preaches about looking out for each other. Kinger having favoritism only towards Pomni and Ragatha while ignoring Jax and Kane is pretty interesting, but this also doesn't get expanded further than that. I personally would have loved to see a Jax and Kinger interaction, especially in the finale. Kinger has been in the circus for a very long time. He has seen both Ribbit and Kaufmo abstract along with so many other people. If anyone could help Jax deal with grief, the best candidate would be Kinger. Plus, since he acts as a sort of father figure to Pomni and Ragatha, and Jax had an absent father, how could you not jump on the opportunity to do something fun with that? All of this is to say that Kinger and Jax had potential, and the few moments we had with them were weird. Since I'm on the topic of Jax, I may as well continue talking about her. In general, Jax is a well-written character, and the most complex one out of the cast. Unfortunately, she is also clearly Goose's favorite character. Having a favorite character in your series isn't a problem in itself, but TADC is a good example of what happens if you care too much about them. Jax takes up way too much screen time within the latter half of the series. And I'll admit, it makes sense since there's a lot of setup and mystery behind her and her past. Unfortunately, with how much we delve into that and her as a character, she ends up overshadowing everyone else. The first solution that comes to mind for this problem is to lower Jax's screen time, but I feel that more episodes would have been a lot better. If Jax were to get less attention in the number of episodes we had, then she'd most likely end up being pretty bare bones like the rest of the cast. But what do I mean by that? Let's take Gangle as an example. She dropped out of graphic design and seems to believe her dream of becoming a comic artist is unrealistic. Why? We know that Gangle is a character that lacks confidence and is possibly suicidal, but we don't really know why. Did her parents not support her goals? Was she doing badly in college and had awful professors and classmates? And how did she get in the circus anyway if she got hit by a truck and hadn't yet recovered? Now let's look at Zubul, someone who said they had dreams of making a mark in the world. But how so? Zubul also says that they have people waiting for them back in the real world, but we don't know who. Friends? Family? What was Zubul's past like anyway, aside from being a tattoo artist and a bartender? And how did they end up in the circus? To top it all off, the worst example of this issue is the main fucking character, Pomni. We know so little about her, it's almost funny. We know that she was an accountant and posted herself exploring abandoned buildings, which is how she got into the circus. And that's it. We don't know anything about her other than that. She exists just to advance the plot. And it feels stupid to say that because, yes, that's what main characters do, but they're meant to be more than that. Yet despite the bonds she made throughout the show, and her changing since the pilot, she still manages to come across as a flat character on her own. I think my least favorite moment from her was in the finale. You see these series of memories of the three becoming super close, and then you feel the dread once you realize that Jax was why they abstracted. Quick side tangent here. I've seen people say that Kamvas' abstraction wasn't caused by Jax, and instead by him going crazy looking for an exit. Yeah, so quick question. Why do you think he was frantically looking for an exit? As far as we can tell from Jax's memories, Kamvas wasn't doing that at all and was perfectly content until Ribbit abstracted. So, from my perspective, yes, Jax did indeed cause the both of them to abstract, directly and indirectly. But back to my original point. So we see all of this happen with Pomni, and after all of that, you'd expect her to feel some kind of anger or betrayal that Jax did something like this, and it's just now being brought to light. But instead, all she says is, "You could have talked to me, man." I feel like it's such a weak statement, especially when it's followed after seeing Jax coming up to her earlier and silently leaving as Pomni just let her go. This isn't to point fingers and say that Pomni didn't do enough, but I found it weird how she didn't do anything in that moment specifically, and her excuse being, "I forgot how bad things could get." Oh, and no one else bothered to check on Jax because apparently Pomni has to be the one to do it all the time. Maybe this is just me, but I would have liked it if Pomni had instead said something along the lines of, "Yeah, you're a bad person, and you have made horrible mistakes. But even then, you still deserve to be loved, and you still deserve to live." If Jax is meant to be a cautionary tale of what happens when you don't reach out to people, I really don't like Pomni's dialogue in this scene. And as respectfully as possible, I feel that my version would have made Jax saying, "I don't want to go," hit a lot harder. I also would have liked it if they removed the "isn't she lovely" edit. It felt very out of place and comedic. Oh, and by the way, the guy singing it is a lolicon, just so you know. So yeah, to recap everything I've said so far, for a show that's meant to be a character-focused show, it does a bad job at this. TADC very much needed more episodes. When criticizing the finale, people bring up a tweet Gooseworks made a while back saying she could prolong the show and give more filler episodes, but that's not what she wanted. She wants every episode to be meaningful, hence the low number of episodes. People have taken this tweet and used it to prove that TADC needed more filler. Others have said that TADC somehow has too much filler. TADC isn't filled with filler, it needs more episodes to further develop character relationships so that moments like this can actually hit. It's so we don't have moments like, "Hey, wanna talk after this?" only for it to never happen on screen. "Hey, can I show you that thing in the hall?" also doesn't happen on screen. This is what you are meant to do in a character-focused show. You know what else you're supposed to do in any kind of story you're writing? To answer the many questions you set up throughout it, such as, what is abstracting? I get the whole, oh, it's an abstract concept, but seriously, what is it? Let's go with the "it's an allegory for suicide" route. These aren't real people. These are digital people. So what happens with their code? Is there a point where the code for the brain scans just can't handle a certain amount of mental turmoil? Are there going to be new members of the circus, and if so, how the fuck are they going to explain the situation? Do you just outright tell the newbie, "Welcome to your new life, you're stuck here forever," while the real you is out there? Do you gradually tell them, or just not bother at all? What's the plan here? How did no one know that Kinger gets sane in the dark? He has been there the longest, no one was stopping him from going in the dark, and he is always in the fucking dark. What thing in the hall did Jax want to show to Pomni? If it was Ribbit, then how did that conversation go? What did Ragatha and Pomni talk about after the guns episode? What the fuck was that whole sequence with Kane at the finale? Now you're probably thinking, wow, Lux, that's a lot of unanswered questions. And to that I say, don't worry, because Goose answered most of these on her Tumblr, because we're just doing that now. What was the conversation between Ragatha and Pomni in episode 6? Basically exactly whatever Kinger and Ragatha talked about, is specifically what happened to Kane after getting erased. I like to think everything that gets deleted gets thrown out into the void. So why is the Wi-Fi signal to a random ass cafe in there? I was wondering if there was any sort of meaning behind the shape sequence Kane uses to get to the brain scans folder/door. It was meant to represent what it's like for him to decode a path he isn't meant to follow, like a visual for his creative problem solving. Okay, why were we shown that? Maybe I'm being dumb here. I do not understand why we were shown this. Have we not seen his problem solving before? His whole problem solving process is trying new things until they work. This process has never really helped him before because he failed to listen to the others. Now he's just doing the same thing of trying different things to make it work, and it works. Okay, cool? Hey, if you don't mind me asking, can new people still join the circus? If they put on the headset and get their brains scanned, then yeah. Why did CNA shut down? Because of Kane. That wasn't even in my list of questions, but now I'm even more curious on what that means, but you know what? I'm fine with that one specifically being unanswered, alright? But the cherry on top to all of this is, not as an attack towards you of course, but people are gonna be really upset again at you answering lore-related questions on Tumblr instead of putting it in the show. Because they can't actually pick up on context clues or don't realize that some things just didn't really matter to the whole thing. Oh, honey, I don't like you. I consider what comes from these Q&As fluff. These aren't fluff. Fluff is when you ask, hey, what's this character's favorite kind of dessert? Blueberry cheesecake. Not fucking... Okay. I have seen so many people say it's a character-focused show, therefore these questions don't matter. To that I say, if you ordered steak and I gave you a steak with a dirty plate, would you be happy? Of course not. But why not? You wanted to eat steak, it's not like you're gonna eat the plate with it. It's because you don't eat food on a dirty plate. And it ultimately ruins both your appetite and the steak, the thing you came for. If a story ends with many unanswered questions that impact a viewer's understanding of certain scenes and it leaves you feeling unsatisfied, it'll still affect the whole thing even if it isn't the main focus. Another thing I've seen some folks say to this problem, and this isn't exclusive to the TADC fandom, is you lack media literacy. Ah, yes. The new fresh buzzword people like to throw around to sound smart because it has more than 2 syllables. Great job, guys. You lack media literacy. You're media illiterate. Everyone's media illiterate. Media literacy for you, and you. You lack media literacy. Oh, excuse me. Clearly, you are abundant with media literacy. Could you explain to poor Ogre why this don't work? Ogre can't comprehend the I don't know how that fucking meme goes. I forgot. God damn it. And you may think I'm done with that Q&A. No. The worst part about all of this, the whole Q&A, was this. What's the most important thing that you've learned about related to writing or planning a story like TADC? To ask for a writer's room at the beginning, so you alone don't get crushed under the overwhelming pressure of a million expectations when you have to rewrite anything. I honestly got shocked reading this because I was under the impression that you have to have more than one writer working on your show. Turns out that in British television, it's actually common to have only one writer for short series. But it's not common in Australia, and Glitch is an Australian-based company. I am surprised that this was all written by only Goose, and for that regard, I have a lot of respect for her. Writing a whole show and directing teams of people on your own is a crazy and monumental achievement, but I'm still very concerned at how Glitch didn't provide her another writer. Granted, TADC was made while Murder Drones was still ongoing, so maybe they just didn't have the resources for another writer, or maybe Goose just didn't want one. But even then, it still doesn't sit right with me when both Liam and Goose were left extremely burnt out after finishing their respective shows, especially when reading reviews left by other Glitch employees. For those who don't know, there is a website called Glassdoor, where employees or ex-employees can leave reviews of companies they worked for. The kicker being that they can be anonymous. While on one hand it's useful to be honest and also avoid being blacklisted from certain jobs, on the other hand, the validity of these claims can be questionable because they are anonymous. A while back, 3 negative reviews on Glitch were posted on here and were spread around a lot. These reviews all talk about poor management, sexism, and overworking their employees. But people have critiqued these reviews for being both anonymous and written right before the TADC finale came out. so they looked really suspicious. Looking at these reviews myself, I found out that they were all posted a day after each other, which makes it look extra suspicious. However, Glitch has been receiving negative reviews since 2024, and while there are positive ones as well, their overall rating on this site doesn't look good. Out of the 27 total reviews, only 32% of them would recommend working there. In other words, only 8 out of 27 people would recommend working there. Even if you remove those 3 negative reviews that were posted a day after each other, which would then be 24 total reviews, still only 1/3 of them would recommend working there. Now, I'm severely unemployed, but that sounds pretty bad. Especially when I looked up Disney and Pixar as a source of reference, and they had 70 to 75% recommendation? If you're still hesitant to believe this, that's fair, but I would urge you to read My Experience Working at Glitch Productions by Colin Rogers, a writer for SMG4, one of Glitch's older shows. Reading through this, I saw a lot of similarities between this and the negative reviews I read. All of this, along with Glitch removing the TADC movie from approved locations and ghosting a lot of theaters that were trying to get in contact with them, shit's not looking good. So why am I bringing this up? I was actually tempted to cut this entire section out of my script, but it was bothering me so much that I didn't want to turn a blind eye to it. With all of this information, along with the fact that they hired a lolicon to sing Isn't She Lovely in the finale, I'm concerned with the inner workings of Glitch. I don't want to point fingers and say that Glitch is an evil and heinous company, but for being such a prominent figure in the indie animation sphere, I truly hope that they can get better, or at the very least run a basic background check on people. Speaking of background checks, I'm also disappointed at the voice actors for working with problematic creators such as Jake Neutron, Kitten Sneeze, and Black Griffin. I want to give the benefit of doubt towards working with Jake since his shit was revealed a good while after Jack's toy released, but my point still stands. I also just don't like how official VAs are taking part in fan songs. It was cool the first few times, but at this point, I think we need to abandon the idea of getting official VAs in fan songs. I feel like at that point it kinda just stops being a fan song, but maybe that's just me. They could never be like you, Derivacat. To wrap this all up, while I enjoyed the ride and still feel attached to TADC, it fails at being a good character-focused show and is disappointing on many ends. I unfortunately can't see myself recommending this show to anyone, but for any TADC fans watching, I highly recommend watching Severance, a show where people working for a company called Lumen have their work and personal memories severed. Now, I'm not the type of person to put one thing down to praise another thing, but I find it funny how, despite Murder Drone's flaws, I personally find it to be a better show than TADC. It was a lot better with their character dynamics and showing instead of telling. Till now, my only major complaints is that I wish the pacing and Jay were handled better. Is that a new episode focused on Jay? Everybody move! With all that being said and done, however, I have a lot of respect for what TADC has done for both Glitch and indie animation. To get something like this in theaters and to garner the large audience it has is a huge milestone and something I respect a lot. I'm excited to see how the Gaslight District and the Knights of Guinevere turns out. Notice how there's a third thing I'm not mentioning? Thank you for watching, and special thanks to the Sun tier patrons over on my Patreon. Shout out to Maxi and Mookie Dips. If you want to see behind the scenes stuff, extra content, or get your name read at the end of my videos, then head over to my Patreon. I think it's safe to say this was the most struggling video to work on structure-wise, because there was a lot of stuff I wanted to cover, and I tried my best to make everything flow somewhat nicely, so hopefully this video wasn't too scatterbrained. I hope you all have a great day or night wherever you are, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye. I think we need to abandon the idea of getting official VAs in fan songs.